can see one worker bee will walk by. And then Mai can actually grab her abdomen towards the end of her abdomen, and then instantly she felt it and started auto grooming. And the other worker bees come up, and they realize she has a mite, and they will help her. So these type of grooming and mite biting behavior is what we are focusing on. And in Ohio, when we started our lab, we actually talked to a lot of beekeepers. They know a lot of wild honeybee population. These are called the feral colonies. So they actually helped us to provide the locations of wild population. So the example, this is a feral colony in a catalpa tree in the central Ohio region. So what we wanted to test on this question is how whether these feral colonies have a high mite biting behavior or grooming behavior compared to the package bees, which is available commercially. But there's also a negative part of package bees. These are random bees putting together. They're basically 3 pounds of several hundred workers with a random queen, and they're shipped from anywhere in the US. So when the beekeepers in Ohio wants to buy package bees, there's potential risk, and it's actually also happened. And they brought in more parasites and pests like small hive beetles and more mice from other regions, especially from southern regions of Florida and Georgia, etc. So what we did is I have students, that's Jada Smith in our lab. She actually collected, we went together to different colonies in Ohio and Indiana. So these are the northern part of Ohio. These are Central State University location. This is actually Purdue University, our collaborator at West Lafayette, Indiana. Purdue has started breeding on the mite biting bees since the 1990s. So they have a decade of experience and a lot of stocks. We're able to collaborate. So we compare these bee colonies, whether they have a high biting colony or not. So the mice we're looking for are the particularly these kind, because these mice, they have 8 legs in there. The intact mice, female might look like this. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4 on the left and 1, 2, 3, 4 legs on the right, total 8. We're looking for the mice under the microscopes after we collect them to look for the mice who have lost legs by the bees chewing. These are other types because they're either immature or they're being dried out in the lab for too long. In the hive, sorry. So we're not including these type. So when we compared these mites from the colonies, we compared how many of them have the mite biting behavior. These are the package bees we're going to compare. These are mite biters from Purdue in Indiana. And these are the mite biter queens that are open mated in the Wright-Patterson Air Force in Ohio. So we expect to see these two type of bees will have a better behavior, and that's what we found. So we counted how many mice have lost their legs, and then we take a transformation in the data, and it turned out the mite biters and the open-mated mite biter queens have produced a much better worker bees in that behavior. In addition, we want to compare how many legs of missing. So it's almost a trend. The mite biter open-mated bees are available for us to collect. And we found it, the trend is to have a higher number in the legs, but from the statistical analysis is not significant yet. So because the bees use the mandibles, hopefully you saw in the video a little bit, so we're very interested in studying the mandibles. Are these mandibles different among all these different bee populations? For example, are the feral bees have different mandibles compared to the package bees? So the previous study from 1990s, they did study it. And so they compare different species, which I will talk about later. But but for now, I want to show you this really phenomenal video. We did a micro CT scanning with the honeybee mandibles at Ohio State University using their CMAS facility. So, so with the high technology of the micro CT scanning using laser technology, we're able to scan and have a three-dimensional view to zoom in to these mandibles. So they almost look like a ice cream scoop if you look at the shape. And so we're comparing the scoop on the top part, kind of when you scoop the ice cream. And we want to compare whether these parts, edges, and these different parameters will be different. So what we found is very exciting. We compared the commercial package bees to the my biters, and we have all these different parameters: the long edge of the mandible, the short edge. These are the width, and then these are the height, and the three-dimensional. We also have the length. So when we compare to the long edge part, it's significantly different. On the commercial package bees, they have a higher value, significantly higher compared to the my biters. And then this is a study I mentioned from the 1990s. This is from the 1990s in Germany. They studied two different species. These are Apis mellifera, that is European honeybees I'm talking about. These are Apis cerana. These are the Asian honeybees. So the bororomites are actually on the Apis cerana as a natural host back in, before 1980s. And then what happened is in the 1980s, the bororomites came to U.S., came to North America, basically. So they can switch host, not only fast drone, but also workers. So that's made a big problem in the European honeybee colony. So we want to compare the mandibles between these two species as well. We collected the samples from Ohio. We have also collected samples from Puerto Rico. So these are the gentle Africanized honeybees, which I don't like the name of Africanized honeybees as a common name. I'm just going to call them aggressive honeybees. So the Puerto Rico bees used to be aggressive, and something happened in the island, went through a microevolution. They turned into gentle, but they still have a high grooming and a high biting behavior. So as a population, it's really good to compare. Then so I went to China and visited the Chinese Apiculture Institute for Apiculture under the Chinese Agriculture Academy of Science. And we collected a colony of Apis cerana, and we want to compare these mandibles. So, so I should have the data. So these are the other mite biting. Yeah, so these are the data of mandible. We have commercial package bee, the Purdue mite biter, the Puerto Rican gentle aggressive honeybee, the Ohio feral, the Apis cerana. So this is Apis cerana is the mite resistant. We've already know that. They've done the evolution. They develop resistance. We think the Ohio feral and the gentle Puerto Rican bees are developing the resistance now, and also the Purdue mite biter. And we think the commercial bees do not have the resistance. So this is the data. When we compared, we can see a trend here. You can see, so from resistant mite population of Apis cerana to the not resistant, this is what we detected. The commercial bees have the higher, significant higher level of value of long edge, which is this part of the mandible, and then compared to all the other ones which are going through developing resistance and resistant one, you can see the trend here. And in addition, we detect the difference in the short edge as well. So this is the short edge, which is this part of the ice cream scoop, if you think about it. So so we think this is a really significant finding in order to study the grooming and high biting behavior. So we started our breeding program since 2017 at Central State University. We think we detected the defensive mechanism of the mite biting behavior with the evidence of mandible changes. We think these will provide really significant evidence for future breeding. So these are the pictures of our lab's extension and outreach activities. Work with all the beekeepers. We organize a workshop for beekeepers every year. These are the students we work with. So we have trained more than 45 students now in our lab on research. So we thank definitely all of our students and our outstanding collaborators with Purdue University, Ohio State, Penn State, and Texas A&M. We have funding from USDA NIFA, the National Science Foundation, Sarah Grant, and our local private funder. So with that, thank you so much for your attention. Yeah. Any questions? All right. Okay. If not, well, I'll just move to the next talk. Thank you.